welcome to the Matchmaker session today for CityLAB Hamilton. My name is Juliana Weber, and I'm the project coordinator for CityLAB. Matchmaker events are where we learn about projects that have been submitted by the city staff, and we work with faculty members to try and find good student, faculty, and staff partnerships to tackle the project. Today, we are joined by Tom Kagianis, Fleet Manager of Public Works, and Lesley Parker, Senior Analyst of Fleet Acquisition for Public Works. The City of Hamilton's Public Works Fleet Energy and Facilities Division has developed a thorough action plan and has taken steps towards greening and updating the fleet of city vehicles. This focus has included upgrading vehicles, retrofitting with aftermarket modifications, implementing the use of biodiesel, and other initiatives. A lot of this focus has been focused on improving the lightweight vehicle class, and Tom and Lesley are looking for research on up and coming global trends and research for expanding fleet greening practices. So welcome, Tom and Lesley. Thank you for joining us today. And if you could first introduce yourself and tell us about your role at the city and how your work impacts Hamiltonians.
So I'll start if that's okay. So it's Tom Kagianis. I'm the fleet manager for the city of Hamilton. So my area is responsible for 4 distinct sections within the fleet organization. Lesley, which is who's in charge of the one area, which is fleet contracts, acquisitions of vehicles, disposal of vehicles. We have a fleet maintenance section that once Lesley goes through her part and buys the vehicles, we are responsible for maintaining and servicing those vehicles for the life of those vehicles. We also have a parts and materials management and fuel supply section, which we have 21 fuel sites throughout the whole city. And this will obviously expand when we get into electrification of vehicles and charging stations, and that section of the business will be responsible, that superintendent will be responsible for that section of the business. And we also have a safety and compliance section of the business for training all our vehicle operators and ensure we're compliant to the applicable legislation, including CVOR of vehicles.
And Lesley?
Good morning. So my name is Lesley Parker. I'm actually the Superintendent of Fleet Capital Planning and Contract Management. So I'm responsible, as Tom said, for the acquisition of vehicles, equipment, and responsible for parts and service contracts. With the new changing technology, we're continuing to investigate opportunities for greening our fleet through our Green Fleet Strategy. Our specification development for vehicles and equipment is we're continually doing research to look at advanced ways and technology in the green and zero emission categories.
Sorry, I got your title wrong there.
That's okay. That's okay.
Well, thank you for joining us today. And it's good to hear a little bit more about the background of your division and what you guys are doing with fleet greening practices. If you could guide us through the challenge and relevant background information and objectives for the project that you've put forth, that would be good.
Okay, so I can start with that and kind of give you a brief overview of where we started with our Green Fleet initiative and strategy, and what the next step is. So, you know, we started out by looking at where the greatest opportunity was to make some significant changes in our emissions from all our fleet vehicles. And just from where the industry has started off in the car and light duty truck area, where electrification of vehicles seems to be a pretty good standard by now in the marketplace, was the area that we looked to focus on primarily because the opportunity was available in that area. So part of our current Green Fleet strategy is to replace 89 vehicles in the next 3 years to the end of 2024, and provide the charging infrastructure for those vehicles. And again, those would be in the classification of a car and light duty truck. So pickups, vans, SUVs, those types of vehicles are readily available in the marketplace. So there are some other initiatives that we're also looking at, some easy wins really that we can accomplish by training our operators on eco-driving habits to reduce emissions from just in their behaviors on how they drive. We're also looking at several anti-idling initiatives that include the engine controls, potentially on shutting down vehicles when they're idling for too long. We're looking at implementing backup battery systems where the emergency lighting can keep going and they could shut the vehicle off with confidence that the vehicle will start after the lights have been going on for a period of time. You know, when you see them out on the road these days in the springtime where we have crews out there planting flowers in boulevards, they have to keep their emergency lighting. And to do that, they keep the engine running. But we do have the opportunity for those backup battery systems to do the work to keep those lights running and for them to stay safe at the same time. So we're also looking at the use of alternative fuels, so biodiesel primarily. And we have started with that initiative and plan on expanding that to all fleet vehicles within the context of this strategy. So our biggest challenge is what that next level is going to be. So like I mentioned to you, car and light duty trucks, vehicles seem to be available for the electrification design, but we don't know what's going to happen next. So in that next classification of vehicle, medium duty class, diesels and gas engine vehicles, and even the heavy duty class and construction vehicles, smaller construction vehicles and even agricultural type vehicles, tractors even, because we do have quite a few sidewalk tractors. We don't really know what the next level of electrification or alternative fuels is going to be what leads the marketplace in those areas. So what we'd like to see through this program is to do some worldwide investigation, because we have heard pockets of innovation through other countries, and would like to see, you know, what the predominant technology might be that we should concentrate on and look into in North America to structure our next phase of our green fleet strategy. So past the end of 2024 into 2025 and those next 4 years into 2029 perhaps, see what the leading technologies are and where we can look to see where we can leverage some of those technologies and keep decreasing the greenhouse gas emissions that are generated by fleet vehicles.
Do you have an idea of specific regions that you've heard of that are leading the world in these practices, or that you would advise students to look into?
So I've heard of a couple pockets. Italy, for some reason, seems to be quite a trending country for different designs of vehicles. There's been other pockets, and I don't recall some of the countries right now of the other ones. I know we've had, it's interesting that different leaders in our corporation that go to different countries for whatever their purpose is there will always come back with tidbits of information from us and say, you know, here's what I saw in this country here, an electric excavator or what have you. And, you know, we look locally around here to see what's available, and it just hasn't hit the marketplace here. So maybe I'll turn over to Lesley if you can add to that point.
Just further to that, it's primarily in the European countries. There's a lot of, you know, in Germany with some of the sidewalk sweepers and technology that we've seen in that area. And you know, our struggle is, like Tom said, it's finding available in Canada. There is also a lot of opportunity in the United States where the suppliers are located, or they have a dealer, but they just don't supply to Canada. I don't know if it's a factor of some of maybe the climate and the temperatures. You know, there's a big focus in like the Florida region with some of these electric and alternative technologies. But again, a lot of it is in the warmer climate areas.
That was my next question, was asking about technologies that might be out of scope or not feasible for Hamilton. You had shared some of the ways that you've introduced biodiesel. I think like the different ratios.
Right.
Could you share a little bit about that?
Sure. So what we looked at was the ability to use biodiesel in the wintertime creates some challenges. So the composition of biodiesel, I'm no chemist by any stretch, but from given to understand that the biodiesel component will cloud up quicker, or gel up, if you will, in colder temperatures. So conventional diesel fuel, they'll add all kinds of additives in there to keep it from gelling. Biodiesel doesn't have that opportunity to add those types of I guess components that will keep that from happening. So when we got approved to implement our green fleet strategy, we started with a lower blend for the winter season, which we call a B5, which is a 5% blend of biodiesel to 95% conventional diesel, just to see how it would end up working in the winter season. We had a pretty cold winter time. And we do have primarily above ground diesel storage tanks that exposed to the elements. And we did run into some pretty significant challenges with the ability to run our trucks with diesel fuel. The dispenser filtration systems were getting clogged up because they would just cloud up and gel up too soon. So unfortunately, we had to abandon use of B5 diesel fuel in the wintertime. However, we did use a B20 blend, a 20% blend of biodiesel towards the end of last summer when we first started, and we have started up again this year with a B20 blend, and we had no challenges with that. So we plan on continuing with the B20 blend for the summer season.
That's some trial and error to make sure that works. That's wonderful to hear. Could you expand a little bit just on how fleet greening impacts the city of Hamilton, and why this is a top priority for the city or for our council?
Yeah, so we have just under 1,400 vehicles and equipment that the city runs, and from those vehicles, it's almost 10,000 tons of greenhouse gas emissions per year. So pretty significant amount of greenhouse gases that we contribute to the city. So obviously that's a target that we want to be able to reduce, make this a more environmentally friendly and safer for the residents of the city. And the other factor is, it will save a great deal of money as well. So the price of petroleum fuels right now just keeps climbing, and the ability to purchase and store it safely in our facilities all create environmental concerns. So all of those facets together are all motivating factors for us to get away from internal combustion type engines to run our fleet vehicles.
That's good to hear that this is on the forefront of everybody's mind. So let's talk about specific student deliverables that you're hoping to see, and how a student group could really aid you the best.
You want to take that one on, Lesley?
Sure. So I think our objective is ultimately to have students research and evaluate upcoming technologies and innovation in the fleet industry to provide those alternate solutions between that 2024 to 2029, 2030 window, just so that we can evaluate potential upcoming solutions, new technologies, availability to Canada, so that we can maybe start purchasing some of these options, or what we need to do from a city perspective to take advantage of these technologies or alternative solutions.
So if I could just add to that as well a bit, you know, some of the technologies that they're talking about right now, some of them that we know about, battery electrification, some of the other emerging technologies that are also out there right now are things like hydrogen, and natural gas has been around for quite some time too, but there's also renewable natural gas now, which is an option. So, you know, there are some challenges with our colder climate on operability of some of those things, and even infrastructure. So refueling infrastructure, as you can imagine, for hydrogen is pretty significant and pretty costly if you're one of the first ones to start implementing something like that. So it's, and you also have the challenge about you know, the old chicken and the egg thing. What comes first? You know, we can put a hydrogen refueling infrastructure there, but if the vehicles aren't there, then what good is it? So, you know, you try and motivate both sections of the industry to come to the table, you know, simultaneously if possible. But you know, the automotive manufacturing industry has to be on board on whatever technology is going to go forward, so you can have both components come to the marketplace pretty close in time with each other.
Yeah, it sounds like a gamble of where to invest and knowing what's going to be feasible for Canada and for Hamilton.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, thank you both so much for giving some background on the challenge, and we're looking forward to seeing where this might go.
Great.